everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and we're going to be looking at the Subaru Crosstrek Wilderness. I think this is actually a really cool, affordable off-roader. Before we get into this video, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the Doug Smith Subaru here in American Fork. Give me some time with this Crosstrek. Link to their website in the description down below. Link to my car buying guide too. Let's get into it. Under the hood, we have a 2.5 liter flat four cylinder that goes through a CVT. Fuel economy is 25 around town, 29 on the highway, with power outputs being 182 horsepower and then 178 pound-feet of torque. Now, before we move forward with this review, I do want to mention if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. You guys can see we've got the matte black decal there on the hood to reduce glare. It also just looks cool. I'm a big fan of the Crosstrek's new headlight design. I think it looks very sharp. You can see the upgraded lights you get with the Wilderness package, and then the gold accenting looks great as well. And definitely has that like cladded off-roader appearance. So our tire wheel setup is 225 by 60 by 17. You can see the wheels are all blacked out. And not the most aggressive all-terrain tires. Kind of like a nice middle ground for something that's going to be used both on-road and potentially on, you know, dirt trails and everything. Got giant cladding there on the side. You can see the rest of the side too. Crosstrek, and then you got your Subaru Wilderness badge there as well. You got the roof rails up top already. There's a side. Now this leads us to the key fob, normal Subaru key fob with our lock and unlock function. The unlock is the Subaru logo, and then that just unlatches the rear hatch, or unlocks it rather. But taking a look at the storage space here in the back, it's really good. Again, this is basically just a lifted Impreza is one way that you could look at it. You'll notice that we've got a car cover built in from the factory as well. And then as for the rest of the rear, I like how the taillights kind of arc around. Again, you get your Wilderness badge down below, and then Subaru stamped into the rear bumper. And this thing actually has pretty aggressive angles, and it's got over 9 inches of ground clearance, so it's got some real off-road stuff going on for it. This leads us into the passenger cabin. I love the Wilderness trim. It's really cool looking, especially the seats. Easier to clean, and pop in here. Legroom's good. Got some USB ports here on the back. And headroom, surprisingly, for such a small car is pretty good. And popping up front, again, you can see all the nice soft touch trim throughout. Front two windows are automatic. You've got your mirror adjustment set up. Mirrors do have blind spot monitoring. And then Subaru Wilderness. But yeah, really cool trim all down the seat. It is power adjustable. And then, yeah, just the normal pedals, which makes sense for this package. And start her up. Now I know the steering wheel is pretty flashy with the gold trim there at the bottom and with the stitching, but I think it actually looks really cool. You do have your little drive modes there off to the one side at the bottom, adaptive cruise control, paddle shifters there on either side, controls for the center stack, volume controls and all of that, and then just regular stocks there on the back. With the center gauge cluster itself, it'll display different drive modes depending on which one you select. You can change the information displayed there in the center, but then again, mostly analog gauges, which I think is needed in today's world. Full digital, I'm not all about that. Got a nice little backup camera in reverse there. And yeah, the screen itself is pretty darn large. You got analog controls on either side for the radio. You can see down below, you got the climate controls and more climate stuff here at the bottom. The cool thing though is the vehicle tab. So you press that and you notice this will let you go through the X mode. So you've got snow, dirt, deep snow, mud, normal. But they make it pretty easy, and I like how you can change that information at the top too. That's kind of cool. But yeah, very user-friendly, quick response time, all of that. This is kind of cool with the trim across the dash there. I know it's not real carbon fiber, but still looks the part. We have a nice little phone charging pad here. Shifter for the CVT. Got our parking brake there behind it. And then you can see the controls for the heated seats. And then we've got some cup holders here behind it. Center console. Got good storage. Nice trim on the top, little charging port there as well. And then we actually do get a sunroof here in the Crosstrek Wilderness as well. Now it's kind of hard to see because of the glare, but after all options and everything, this sticker's for $37,493. Oh, Crosstrek Wilderness. I think this car's actually pretty darn cool. I mean, here's the deal. Modern off-roaders are so darn capable that they make all off-roading just super boring. And the other thing is, here in the US, most off-road trails get graded on a pretty regular basis, and so they're not really off-road trails, they're just dirt roads. So you look at that and it's like, man, do I really need to spend 70 grand on a Wrangler or a Bronco or something like that? And the thing that I think is really cool about the Crosstrek Wilderness is this thing is tiny. Again, this is just a lifted Impreza, so it's it's a small car. It's a little hatchback, but it's got off-road stuff. There is actually nothing else like this in the car market, because if you look at all of the other off-roaders, everything is either a big truck or a big SUV. And that does change dynamics off-road quite a bit, because you've got all that weight to move around. And on top of that, on top of the weight, also, most of these vehicles have a pretty high center of gravity. This, I mean, it's still got over 9 inches of ground clearance, but it's a pretty low compact car overall. And so you've got a lower center of gravity, which definitely helps out quite a bit off-road, is what I've discovered, right? I've taken vehicles off-road that are lifted and vehicles that are lower to the ground, and what I've discovered is the vehicles that are lower to the ground, yeah, you've got to worry about clearances. So you just take things a little bit slower, but because you're hugging the ground, they crawl so much better. They get so much more traction and everything. It's actually pretty darn impressive. Actually getting up and moving, what they've done is they've actually changed the gearing and everything here with the Wilderness package to make it so that it's supposed to be better at crawling. And apparently this can even go up a 38-degree incline. Like, it's actually got some decent capability built in. Seats are comfortable too in the Wilderness, which is always a plus, right? It seems like some manufacturers just don't know how to build seats, or at least don't know how to make them comfortable. That's for sure. Now, yeah, CVT and an NA 4-cylinder. Not exactly the recipe for power, right? We all know that, but it's actually not as bad as you'd think. What I've discovered with CVTs is, these modern CVTs, is they just allow the engine to rev out, and so you just kind of rev out the engine. Now, some people don't like that, but I'd say that it's, especially with this having a flat 4-cylinder, it's smooth enough, right? Like, that's smooth enough. It's loud. It's definitely loud, but it ain't bad. It is not bad whatsoever. It's got to make sure that boat is firmly behind me. Got to make fun of Dodge. Now, the suspension with the Wilderness is actually very comfortable. Subaru does a really good job with the damping with their cars, all of them. So I think that, I mean, obviously we're not off-road, but I think this would actually be pretty comfortable over the, you know, gravel roads and everything. And it's going to handle well, again, that lower center of gravity. It's actually not too bad. I mean, it's got a rev up here and there, but it's actually not too bad. Good thing we're not going to another exit. It looks like the traffic's slowing down quite a bit, which happens every single time there's rain or snow. People crash in Utah like crazy. It is a big problem. Is this person gonna let me in? Yes, finally. Jeez. And I will say that was actually a great use of blind spot monitoring, because from my position, I don't know if you guys could see, from my positioning, that person was not visible whatsoever unless I leaned forward, right? So that was a good show of Subaru's blind spot monitoring. And it's a pretty good system. It's not obnoxious, but it does blink at you, which is, I don't know, lets you know what's happening, right? So I guess we'll get one more, except maybe if we get through the light here. I don't see this person moving at all. Some people literally just have a lag in real life. Okay, we'll just sum it up here because we're going to be here for another minute. I think the Crosstrek Wilderness is really cool, and I think that this is kind of like a new off-road segment that's starting to build out. It's not really like truly new, because you used to have like the Honda Element and stuff, but like automakers are now coming back to these small, affordable little off-road rigs. I mean, you got the Bronco Sport, but that thing's just not really affordable. I mean, you get a Bronco Sport with the off-road stuff, and I just did a comparison the other day. I mean, it's as expensive as an Outback Wilderness, which is a much bigger vehicle than the Bronco Sport. So yeah, it'll be interesting to, oh, someone, see, look at that, someone crashed. Literally, someone crashed. I said it. Every single time it rains, every single time it snows, people crash because they don't know how to drive here in Utah. Utah's, people argue with me, but Utah does have the worst drivers on the planet. It is, we win in rankings when it comes to bad driving. So Let me know what you guys think about the Crosstrek Wilderness, but I don't know, I'm kind of I'm kind of tempted to buy one of these for the channel just to show people like how much off-roading you can do with something like this that is sub $40,000 and doesn't have a low range, right? Doesn't have the normal off-road kit. I think that people would be surprised. So let me know if you'd want to see that. I'm kind of tempted to do it.